Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Shredded Dread, and welcome to Why We Love Doctor Who. And here we go. As you probably gathered by now, it's the Cybermen. I'm joined by my usual crew of John the White, Golden Age Geek, and Burnshaw. Good evening, gentlemen, and how are we today?
You belong to us. You
Yes.
will be like us.
Are you doing an impression of a Cyberman or of a No.2 fan?
Hey, I'm going to give it a go. Yeah, as Sadako has noticed, we are 2 minutes late, gentlemen. The cyber controller will not be pleased with such inefficiency. But
Yes,
nevertheless, we're actually mere humans, so he can swing it.
Yeah, well, it happens. I had to pick my car up from a service. Sorry about that.
That's how it goes. Do you know what? It was. I bet it was the microchips.
Yes, it always is.
It always is for microchips. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a cyber conspiracy, everybody. Anyway, it's good to be here again, Gobby. Now, I've got a little bit of news. There is something unique about this episode of Why We Love Doctor Who, apart from the fact it's a special about the Cybermen. This is the first one of these that I'm doing sat in a chair at my desk.
Yes.
Rather than from my hospital bed.
Brilliant news.
Because I continue to get stronger and I'm slowly increasing my weight.
Yes.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I'm very happy that I'm now able to spend time in my chair again. It was just impossible before. It was so uncomfortable. But things are improving for me, steadily. So I'm delighted to be able to share that. It's just fantastic.
Brilliant, mate. Awesome news. Fantastic news.
Oh, well, unfortunately, when the chips are down, there's no one around to come and scoop out our brain and stick it in a cyber form.
Unfortunately,
so even if you found the idea of the eternal life offered by the Cybermen alluring, it's not real. But that's part of who they are, the horror of those ideas. And when you're close to the end of your life, you can understand a little bit better, perhaps, that drive, that desperation to keep going, to survive, which is at the core of what the Cybermen are. And the Cybermen are born of a specific time in Doctor Who history, which is the second half of the 1960s.
Yeah.
And at the time, the world was in a new age, an atomic age, and we were in the very early stages of the information age, and the use of computers was starting to be adopted, although they were all as big as houses and only owned by large corporations or governments. But people could see that there was a potential future ahead where man and machine would merge in some way. And we live in a world today where that has become real. Where it's commonplace for elderly people to have replacement joints.
Indeed, it is.
And other replacement parts, or other devices to regulate the functions of parts of their bodies.
Yeah.
Or we can do operations and perform surgeries which were absolutely impossible without the development of machines.
Yeah.
So all of these things were in the infancy of the burst of new technology and new promise, and the promise of transplant surgery, that was seducing the world in the 1960s. And when Kit Pedler and Jerry Davis, it was Jerry Davis who was the script editor, wasn't it? And he was given the task of coming up with something. This is what he tapped into, this replacement parts, and what if it went wrong? What if it became a horror story? And that is the Cybermen. But they are the story of people's desperation turning to technology, but that technology in turn turns on them.
Yeah.
Now, Gobby has just changed his profile picture there. Do you want to talk about this, Gobby? Are you ready?
Oh, I'm as ready as I can ever be. So let's just bring myself forward.
Here we have Sergeant Gobby is ready to take on the Cybermen.
Yes, indeed he is.
As I said, I have taken up painting and modelling again recently, and it's been brilliant to go back to skills I put down 20 years ago, and I'm absolutely loving it. But to say thank you for Gobby for being such a brilliant host for all of these streams, I have painted his very own Space Marine Apothecary.
Yes.
And rather than post it, we've had a much better idea, which is
I'm going to go get it.
Gobby's going to come and collect it, and we
Yes,
can
I'm gonna come get it.
spend an afternoon together, hopefully in some sunshine, but not much chance this week.
Not at the moment, mate. No,
No, not much chance this week.
But,
So you know, I want to share you all how how deeply grateful I am to Gobby for making all these streams possible. Now,
yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks.
Back to the Cybermen.
Yes.
Where do we get to? Yes, the inevitability and Kit Pedler tapping into the fear of these ideas. And so it was appropriate, but it was when the Doctor himself was facing death. But he faced the Cybermen for the first time in the now immortalized classic, The 10th Planet.
Oh,
everyone on the panel's seen The 10th Planet, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
What an episode.
Yep.
What an episode.
Jake is a little silent.
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
yes. I have seen it. Good. I mean, I'm just checking for a moment because that story just has its own wonderful vibe. You know, we were starting all the rocket countdowns and everything else. You know, and that whole rocket adventure, which of course was say 1960s. You know, and then this strange thing begins to happen. And this capsule up in space starts to lose power, and there's a planet approaching. Is it a planet? It's very familiar because it's the same size and mass as the planet Earth, and its land masses are Earth upside down. And the Doctor is at the very end of his first regeneration. And he's falling apart from old age, basically. So his role in the first story of the Cybermen is kind of peripheral, and much of the mantle of leading the fight is taken up by Ben and Polly, especially in episode 3, where William Hartnell in real life wasn't well enough to record that week, so they had to change the 10th Planet script rather hurriedly to take account of that. But despite that, you know, the idea of these men from space, these metal men from space who've given over their emotions, who've given up, sacrificed all the pleasure of life just to survive, and how cold and heartless that makes them, and the impact that had on the audiences, and the impact that initial Cyberman design still has all these decades later. You know, with the juxtaposition of a metal body and a human hand sticking out the end of the sleeve. Yeah. You know, it's creepy, it's spooky, it's freaky. And as we covered in depth in the last episode where we ran through the series from start to finish, where we covered Peter Capaldi's final story. You know, that Mondasian Cybermen, as these came to be known, came back to haunt the Doctor at the very end.
Indeed.
So there's this link between the Cybermen defying death and the Doctor's own death, but the show has actually tapped into, and if we do consider the end of season 10 to be the current end of what we recognise as Doctor Who, then that's very much you know, how the Cybermen have been bookended in the history of the whole show. Yeah, true. So that's itself is remarkable. But when they first turn up, you've got this polar base. You've got these soldiers, you know, who are stationed there. There's weapons of mass destruction there, you know, and these are not comedy soldiers. They come across as competent. They come across as knowing their business. Yep. And then when they face the Cybermen out in the snows outside the base, it's all the more unsettling that they are completely unmanned. Yep. They cannot resist them.
Nope.
Their bullets don't hurt them. They can't fight them in hand to hand. Their blows snap their necks. The Cybermen are terrifying.
Mm.
And it's that, I think it's that initial cliffhanger, as much as anything else, that raised the Cybermen on the path that led to them becoming, the second most acclaimed Doctor Who monster of all time.
Absolutely.
It's that impact, which is why we're having this stream today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it just shows you how, a bunch of guys literally wrapped up with cellophane to stop the costumes falling apart, with a bit of a wind machine and some polystyrene snow, could craft something that can transcend art and enter the realm of the mythic. And the Cybermen had that. And, they ran with it and they didn't look back.
No.
So, I mean, it's kind of a shame that the actual plan in the 10th planet is as dumb as bricks.
Well, yeah, not the greatest, is it?
We will drive our planet. No, hang on. First Cybermen. We will drive our planet at you, and we will see which one of us blows up. So there, sucker, booyah.
Wait, are they not trying to drain the core of the planet? Kind of like because their planet's dying and they think draining energy from ours
Look, they've been out in deep space too long. They've gone
way too long.
They're
lost it.
Doodle.
Yeah, they've lost the plot big time. They really have.
Well, that's what I said. I never actually thought about that. That was quite an interesting parallel you brought up about how the Doctor is
how
also
long did they travel through space to get to Earth when they must have been other targets closer nearby?
I mean, they're past a fair few planets on the way, let's be honest.
No, it's because Earth is their twin, so they think that they'll be the perfect amount.
It'll be the perfect thing, won't it?
Yeah.
It's
like a donor, like a blood donor, basically, I guess.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
But I mean, talk about Doctor Who, isn't it? Because I mean, how much of a kicking does Kill the Moon get for the moon suddenly being a creature and being a moon again?
It's true.
But is that any less dumb?
Well, yeah.
It's considerably more dumb, trust me.
Right next door, and nothing ever happens. We don't get hit by massive chunks of asteroid devastating the surface of the Earth. No. Look, it just went fizzle pop. It was good. Think of it no more. It's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. Fine, no problem.
But we give that a complete pass.
Yes, indeed.
And the reason we give it a complete pass is the Cybermen are so goddamn cool.
They are cool.
And it's also a deep, deep tragedy that 10th Planet Part 4 is missing. And yes, we had one of the very best animations to replace it, which is much appreciated, obviously, because the 10th Planet DVD is wonderful. I've enjoyed it many times. But still, it's just how they let that go, because of course it's William Hartnell's final episode. So it's just all the stories we don't have. 10th Planet Part 4. But it's only because they lent it out to Blue Peter and never got the tape back. That's basically what happened.
Typical.
But then, if that was true, maybe it's out there. So no, don't even think about starting a rumor that I have no basis at all. Can you imagine the chaos that could ensue?
Remember that interview with Ian Levine?
I mean, hasn't fandom wanted 10th Planet back so bad?
Is it the interview with Ian Levine where he's talking about and you see his fingers clenching to the fist because he's getting so worked up? That was just so hysterical and so funny.
People trying to blag 20 grand out of BBC claiming they got it, dear, oh dear.
Dear.
No, I'm afraid the truth is that's probably lost for all time.
Yeah.
But that just adds to the enigma and the mystery of the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
And, the response to the Cybermen was strong enough that the production team immediately fought to bring them back. And it was only 3 more stories later, very early Patrick Troughton's first series,
Yeah.
that they returned in the moon base.
The moon base.
Actually, so I was going to say, before we move on to the moon base, there is actually something else I'd like to talk about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
carry on.
different.
The influence of the 10th planet. Well, again, it's Dan Dare. I know that's
Yeah.
obviously like a big part influence on 62. We already went over how the Daleks were inspired by them, but the Cybermen might have actually been even more inspired, because basically the 10th planet, as far as I can see, it's a mix mash of two Dan Dare stories. One is called The Red Moon Mystery, and it's about a planet re-entering our solar system that was there years ago but drifted away and is now returning. And like the aliens that were on that planet, they've since degenerated into monsters that are forced to conquer other worlds, and now they want to do the same to our planet, and it ends with that world's destroyed. They have to blow it up and kill those things off. So that's pretty
Jerry
much.
Davis's weekly subscription to Eagle magazine is entirely coincidental.
Yeah.
Well, and also the Treens, you know how they were also obviously like an inspiration of the Daleks. Well, they were like the Cybermen, and that they were meant to have removed all emotion from their brains because they thought it was a
True.
weakness.
Yeah.
And in the first story, like they're driven off their home planet and they're a race of desperate creatures. And finally, another thing about the 10th planet is it and Dan Dare were kind of like early versions of Star Trek, and that they showed a future where everyone was living together. You know, there was like white people, black people, all everyone was all happy, and like that. And the 10th planet really goes out of its way to show that. You know, with the black astronaut and everything.
Yeah.
So really, it definitely grew out of it. And it's worth noting. Finally, Kit Pedler did a foreword to a Dan Dare reprint. I've actually got it, and even mentions that the Cybermen are very like the Treens. So I think it's fair to say that they kind of, I mean, obviously, well, everything you guys said is right. And as I said, I actually never noticed that really cool parallel between the Cybermen cheating death and the Doctor cheating death at the end of the 10th planet. That's really cool. But I think you also have to acknowledge as a Dan Dare, you know, that the kind of their combination of that and techno fear taken to a new level, which is fine. Everyone takes from everyone else, but I think that's a real important part of their origins.
Yeah, good spot. Nice one.
That's excellent.
Excellent.
Yeah, and spot on. And all of these connections, you know, the interconnectivity of all things, especially science fiction.
Yes, indeed.
Completely different. Not absolutely not the same thing. Moon base. Well, I mean, the moon base is wonderful because it's so ambitious. And it had this fantastic set over at Ealing Studios. They could do both the live action and the model work on.
Yeah.
And you know, they to do Kirby wires and Doctor Who spacesuits and jumping about. It's all just wonderfully good fun.
Yeah.
But then when the story itself starts, it's all very quickly becomes very sinister. Because not only are the Doctor, Jamie and Ben and Polly under suspicion all the time. There's what's going on at this moon base. Why does the atmosphere keep registering pressure drops? Why are men falling ill, sick? Why are they losing the ability to control the gravity beam upon which the Earth's weather now depends? The graviton device. So there's all of these factors, and of course, what's really going on is it's the Cybermen.
Yeah.
And they're slowly subverting and undermining the base in order to take it over, and then use the graviton as a weapon to hold Earth to ransom to get whatever they want.
Yeah.
But little did they count on the fact that the Doctor's been caught up in all of this.
Oh dear, that's put a spanner in the works.
And after a bit of messing about, he quickly realizes that there is no disease on this base whatsoever, and that the crew are simply being poisoned.
Yes.
By the sugar in their coffee. Dun dun dun!
Damn it.
Just think, if one of them had taken Canderel in their coffee, the whole plot would have unraveled.
Or just drank tea.
Or just, yeah.
No, actually, I'll have a tea today, if that's all right.
But the Cybermen have done their research and they've
Yes.
manipulated what they've done, you see. They've manipulated the computer systems on Earth so that only sugar addicted personnel got picked for assignment to the moon base.
Very clever. Very clever. Yes,
That's
advanced
way they
thinking there.
ensured the success of the
Yes.
plan for cyber domination.
Dude, I always love that tune. I remember my brother used to call that the Patrick Troughton fighting music because it would always show up.
Oh yeah.
It's like Star Trek had the fighting music, you know, the do 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 do. That's Patrick Troughton's. Lost in Space had fighting music as well. More shows should have that actually.
Every show needs fighting music.
Don't pollute my Doctor Who head with Star Trek music, damn it. So 2 minutes on it, beeps and boops floating through there now. But no, there were several suites of music that the show used. The bombastic Cyber March, was used not only in Cybermen stories, but was used in almost all the 60s Cybermen stories. Since Base, I think, had it at some point in the run. Because it's just so fantastic. Oh yes, Web of Fear used it, absolutely.
Yeah.
So just part of how Doctor Who used to get its soundtrack back then. But that and the electronic music, and the electronic sound effects just lift the whole thing into a magical technological place. And it's very convincing. It really sells you that you are on the moon. I think the way that the interior sets were designed to allow you to feel like they're connected to the outside through the window of the dome and so on, I think was really quite a clever bit of set design that helped to sell the moon base. So the end of it is, of course, that the thing the Cybermen want is also their undoing, because the Doctor realises that if you take the bolts off, you could point the thing really low. So he gravities their ass off the surface of the moon and sends them spinning off into deep space, never to be thought of again.
Gentlemen, just to interrupt, I've got to just disappear for a few minutes. I've got an important phone call to take, so I'll be back in a minute.
Right, you're all, Gobby. We should
all right, see you in a minute then. No worries.
So yeah, which I thought was vaguely haunting, and the idea of just being left abandoned in floating space forever.
It's pretty
eventually get pulled into the orbit of the sun and burn up. I don't know.
You think of those? Sorry, I was going to say those poor people when they were converted into Cybermen, they weren't even given mercy killings, and now, as you say, they're just going to float around in that awful state forever. That's pretty horrific.
Well, it's better off than being the Ice Warriors, because if you're the Ice Warriors, all you have to do is go boop 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 in their ear, and you've got them going off in the wrong direction.
I know.
Go roundabouts, so never make it to a boop 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 boop.
I know you will say, think you'd notice.
At least it's better than that.
You wouldn't need sonar to notice the sun of all things, would you?
But again, the response to the Cybermen was excellent, and the Cybermen were given a thorough redesign, which also accentuated their blank emotionlessness by giving them faces which were masks of metal.
Which do you guys? Oh, sorry.
No, after you, Berenger.
Oh, I was going to say, which design do you prefer between this and 10th Planet one? Because I've noticed the 10th Planet one is probably a lot more popular these days because of that Capaldi story. But when I was young, the original one was actually always seen as laughable. Like, it was always actually seen as a bit of a joke.
It was absolutely seen as a joke. Because it did look bad.
I know, it's funny, it did.
I mean, the costumes barely held together.
The voices were very silly.
I don't think the voices were an issue. I think they could have stuck with those voices. The voice worked per se, but then you've got to have a voice say something that makes sense. The costume change was just essential because they couldn't continue with it without that. But I do think elements of that design could have been kept. I think the mask faces were.
The hand is the best bit.
Unnerving, I think if I'd have kept anything, I'd have kept that.
Sorry, Golden Age Geek, you want to say something about the design?
Well, weirdly enough, I've always preferred the 10th Planet design. I know it looks a little bit bit clunky, sort of put together, but I think that actually caves in a little bit to the body horror element. The idea it kind of gives the impression that they've all just been the human remains have just sort of been like stuffed in there, like it's true sort of vile. Whereas the designs going forward, I've always been less passionate about them because it just seems more sort of generic.
The context here is that we'd had Earthshock, and Earthshock had revolutionised the Cybermen because the design in Earthshock was so much better than the design in Revenge of the Cybermen. So
Oh God, like
everybody loved the Earthshock designs, and in that basis, the one that was stuck together with sellotape looked really bad.
Well,
You know? I don't think people, because I think people were so in love with the Earthshock design, they didn't really want to consider the body aspect horror of the original. But this is decades later. Things have moved on. We had Art Deco Cybermen, and looking back, looks different. The view
Sugar Babe Cybermen.
Oh God, Sugar Babe. Jesus Christ.
No, speaking as a 90s baby, I grew up. The Earthshock, the Cybermen with.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Has John the White been replaced by David Coverdale for Whitesnake?
Great.
Well, I will admit that my profile picture is a little Bohemian Rhapsody.
Just a bit.
Right, back to you, Virgil.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, I was just kind of reiterating what you're saying, that speaking as a 90s baby who grew up with Doctor Who on video, I think we're a bit of an overlooked section of fandom, but the Earthshock ones were seen as the absolute classic ones for us. I mean, to us, they still are my favourite, but looking back on it, I think that, I agree with you guys, it may be kind of an amalgamation of them, because I totally get what Golden Age Geeks said about the 10th Planet ones, that there is like the cloth faces is creepy, but they're too clunky.
I'm sorry, my conscience is bothering me. I may have to confess to heresy here.
Uh-oh.
You see, my favourite cyber design is the Invasion cyber design.
Yeah, they're good. Yeah.
I don't know what it is about it. I think maybe it's the impact that the shot coming down the steps outside St. Paul's had on me as a kid. Way before I could actually see the episode, we had those few still images. So that was a really iconic picture of 60s Cybermen.
Well,
I just think they look great, and because they were also used on the covers of the Target books when they, strictly speaking, shouldn't have been. So they were even then, they were in the 70s, they were sort of taken as the most representative of the Cybermen designs we'd had.
See, to be honest, John, I think they were actually the most influential of the classic era, because they became the kind of standard. Earthshock and Revenge and all the other ones, right up until Silver Nemesis, are just variations of the Invasion.
This is all fine. I'm on safe ground admitting to all this.
Yeah.
The problem is this. I quite like the Cybermen in Power of the Doctor.
Power of the Doctor?
Yes. That's
I can barely even remember. I can barely even remember.
For two reasons. Number one, that design is the most strongly influenced by the Invasion that New Who's come up with.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do rather like them. The costumes. They're so much better than those Nightmare and Steel ones.
Oh yeah, there's that.
I don't like the Cybermen that are made to look over armored like they're space robots. I think you really lose what they are then. So I didn't like the Nightmare and Steel design at all. It's so Iron Man. It was.
Oh yeah.
Where's our originality?
The sexy arse is moving.
But then Chris Kittle had flying cyber heads ripping off the Orville, and
Oh God, yeah.
We do watch American programs, Chris.
Yes, now and again.
So shallow.
But also not the character Assad, who just bringing back from the dead, it's pathetic, to be honest. But
he was awful.
The way that he moved with a purpose, the way that he moved with aggression implied in the mechanical nature of his movements, the way he was, oh dear, this doesn't happen to Cybermen very often, combat aware of his environment.
Yes, he was. He did have some awareness.
Well, the actor who played Assad was fine. It was more just I hated that character. He was a cyber supremacist. He was a Dalek leader rather than a Cyberman one.
I have to admit that portrayal of the Cybermen in those 30 seconds or so of that opening sequence in Power of the Doctor really did speak to my inner child and how I imagined Cybermen.
Sorry, I just can't remember anything from Jody's stories. They're so crap.
That's for trauma, blanking it out.
Yes, I'll say it. That's trauma blanking that out.
But I don't know. I don't know if I don't see any support for my heresy in chat, so I think I'm out on my own.
Yeah, I think it looks like it. Looks
But
like
you
it.
know, I just
One thing
I also kind of like the Cyber Time Lords thing, not how they've done it, but the idea of if the Time Lords had competition like that.
Well,
you know, I kind of like that.
You guys probably know this, but you know who actually created the Cyber Lords? It was Robert Holmes for his original draft of the 5 Doctors.
Well,
that was going to be the plot.
This is it. I am aware of that. I think the idea has merit.
Well, yes, Robert Holmes' idea.
Not in the hands of Chris freaking Chibnall.
No.
But that's the problem with Chibnall.
Hell no.
He did actually cherry pick some of the very best possibilities you could develop from classic and then squander them horribly.
I think there's a comic book with the 12th Doctor you might be interested in. Is it called Supremacy of the Cybermen? That again was done before Chibnall.
That was trying to think what it was for. Was that for the 60th? No, it wasn't for the 50th, was it?
50th anniversary of the Cybermen, I think it was, or something.
Something like
yes,
that.
It was. Okay. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah. No, I've definitely read that. It's available online if you know where to look.
Wow, cool. Yeah, so that's I mean, it shows you how unoriginal Chibnall is. It was literally a first draft from Robert Holmes, and it was a comic book before he did it.
There was also this extensive crossover with Matt Smith's Doctor and Star Trek: The Next Generation, where the Cybermen met at the Borg, which also involved multiple timelines. Like there was a bit where Tom Baker met Jim Kirk and stuff, you know, and like classic Star Trek met Revenge of the Cybermen.
That's what we want to see more. Personally, that's what I want to see more than New Who meets New Trek is William Shatner and Tom Baker.
Oh, could you imagine the conversation?
Although actually, I think John Pertwee might have gone better with Captain Kirk because he's a similar, like he tends to, go in these big moral speeches, and Venusian karate versus the Kirk chop could be quite a good fight.
What a heck of a fight sequence that would.
Yeah, so that would be good.
Yeah, I mean, take this Cyber Time Lords thing. Like, what if you had, the Cybermen as we know them, and they're sort of split into bands of Cybermen who go off and try different stuff, So one cyber band tries this plan, another cyber band tries that plan, and the Doctor encounters them from time to time or defeats them. They have wars and they're defeated, But what if there was one group of Cybermen who just sodded off, right, and went away from people, and then wait some more, and then went away further than that?
Yeah,
and they actively went to avoid organic life. And then they're encountered in the far, far, far future, where all they have done is use their resources to improve themselves. They haven't used their resources for conquest. They haven't played that game. They've taken a completely different route. And let's say the Doctor encounters them, but in doing so, accidentally convinces them that the rest of the universe is a threat. So then they emerge from their isolation as an all-powerful, time technology wielding cyber faction, and then there's a fight with Gallifrey. Now, how about that?
Oh Jesus, that'd be a heck of a fight. Oh, that would be good. Oh yes,
yeah,
I like that. See, Chris Chibnall, not that hard.
It was never hard.
No, it never was.
They just never had the right people for the right reasons because they're interested in other things that get hard altogether.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Filthy little beasts. Anyway,
I've actually always one thing I'm going to try this out actually in my series, but I'll just run some things by. But I've actually always thought that the Cybermen don't always need to be villains. I mean, obviously, I want them to be villains, but what I mean is, what gets overlooked with, and this is what Chibnall overlooked, is that they're not conquering because they think they're the supreme beings. They're conquering because that's the only way that they can reproduce. They can't reproduce, through heterosexual or through asexual means. They have to actually convert other life forms. So, say if they found a way, like if they found a method to clone, like hundreds of humans that they could just then convert, they wouldn't actually be at war. So maybe like in the far future, like if say when there's like humanity and all these other races are living together, then that technology could be given to them and then they could become allies, because logically they would think that's a better way to survive than, wage a war against like billions of other species that could unite against them. I mean, the Daleks would never do that, because that's the point. They do think that they have to conquer everything in order to survive. But it does go to show you.
Matthew Pounder's comment.
Sorry.
They've always been depicted as a dying race.
Mm,
Let's talk about that.
it's true.
You see,
Yeah.
as a writer, there's a problem. When you have an enemy which is powerful, and you have to find a way to defeat them. So, especially in a format like Doctor Who, where you've got 90 minutes to do it in.
Yeah.
And so, take Darkwater, for example, where Missy hatches this plot for the Cybermen for them to basically be made by cyber nanites in the water, in the rain,
God.
falling on all the graveyards, turning all the corpses of Earth into Cybermen. No, look, it's a rubbish idea, perhaps. But the point is, when you've got a technology like that, that's called an I win button.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if an alien invader could weaponize Earth's water, we're doomed.
Yep.
We'd have no prospect whatsoever of surviving such a weapon.
Nope.
Even if it didn't cause metallic robotic creatures to spring up from the ground, so that's a problem with the Cybermen. They are such a powerful idea, because you start thinking, well, what if technology enslaved humanity? And you very quickly find that it doesn't have to go very far before humanity loses.
Yeah.
Elon Musk is very worried about this, and we should also be paying attention. He's also the guy who's trying to integrate the human brain with a computer chip, which is stage one of creating a Cyberman.
Cyberman. Yeah, exactly.
If only he was a Doctor Who fan rather than Star Trek.
Fascinating about the Cybermen is that they more than many other Doctor Who monsters, art imitates life. You know, and the threat of the Cybermen in the program matches the threat of cybernetics and AI, as we now think of it, artificial intelligence. To humanity itself, not just will we live, but also what is the human theory. And Sadako, all of this talked about singularity theories, everything's developing so quickly, it all comes to one big crunch point, bazam.
Yep.
Terence McKenna was very good at that, and he talked really, really quick about it too.
Yes, he did.
Because he took a lot of mushrooms, so his brain went.
True, though.
He went out in style, didn't Terence? And for punching me down, I'm getting high, baby.
Yes.
Oh dear. And that's another thing. Just put Cybermen in the drugs. There you are, you all dudes.
Oh God.
Can you imagine the Cyberman aspirin? It took you over as soon as you popped it.
That'd be awesome. Get rid of the headache.
So because of this problem, the show has always tended to go the other way, because it's a way of keeping the Cybermen's power level down so that you can have a realistic drama within the format of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And that's the answer. That's why they've always been depicted as a dying race, because if you let them get on top, you've had it.
Yeah, because they're too powerful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was actually trying to say, that I don't think that always has to be the case.
Because they out-adapt us, they out-evolve us, they're stronger than us.
Well, no, because the thing is, the Cybermen wouldn't ever take over. If the Cybermen converted every single thing in the universe, right, they would die, because then there would be no way of reproducing. So when that generation died, which, I mean, it would eventually, there's no way they could be indestructible, then that would be that. So the Cybermen would that's what I'm saying, unlike the Daleks, the Cybermen would be more likely to actually want there to be other organic species that could thrive, that
I
they
should
could
think
take some members from.
the Cybermen could clone a brain if they really needed a component.
Well, yeah, they could. But even then, if that's what I was trying to say earlier. If they can clone, they would just reproduce that way. They wouldn't need to then conquer other races, which would, be risky for them and could result in them being destroyed. They could just create clones and not be in conflict with other races because they're logical. They're not driven by this irrational hatred. They're driven purely by a desire to survive.
Yeah.
And so another thing as well about the idea that they are a dying race, I think that actually kind of suits them because I think it tied in. As you were saying earlier, the Cybermen are an attempt to stave off death, but they're not just like a human being unable to face their death. They're actually a race. It's like all of us, we can't imagine, we can't really comprehend the fact that our species is mortal, that one day there will be a last generation. No matter how hard we try, no species can live forever. Like humanity's doomed sooner or later. And, we'll do anything to put that off. And that's all the Cybermen were. They weren't these evil monsters. They'd reached a stage where obviously their species was dying. And so then they did something to try and overcome that, and it worked. But in the end, even that wouldn't work indefinitely. And now they've become monsters because they're willing to sacrifice other species for their own survival. But at the same time, they're just doing what any other species would do to survive. So that's why I think there was maybe room for a bit more ambiguity with the Cybermen. They don't always have to be completely evil. I think that what Chris Chibnall did, having them want to kill every other organic, species in the entire universe, that's crap. That's just sub-Dalek stuff, really.
Yeah.
But chat is having a jolly interesting time. The
They are
really starting people thinking over here. But I mean, Matt Pounder, return to what Matt says, we're slowly becoming Cybermen through all this dysphoria nonsense. But the connection between transgender and transhumanity, transhumanism, is not a fiction. It's very real.
Well,
and a lot of the forces which back transgenderism, in terms of institutions, corporations, also back transhumanism. And there's perhaps a very real reason to think that looking ahead to the needs of the future, I'm the first one to say that humanity will not solve its problems from within the biosphere.
It's true.
We're rolling around an infinite universe of energy out there. What are we doing? There's rocks out there in the asteroid belt which have got more iron than we could ever possibly extract from the Earth. There's rocks out there with economic value estimated in the hundreds of trillions.
True.
We only have to go out there and get them.
But
perhaps those who are looking at those problems are coming to the idea that in order to do that, we must change. Or those of us who go out there at least must change. And as is usual when it comes to technology, there is a tendency to want to keep these things secret rather than have a social debate about them. For example, there was no social debate before mobile phones got turned on. They were suddenly there. And when things like that, when changes like that happen in society, you can be certain that society's most powerful, influential forces are behind them, because that's why they happen that way. So we are not far away from a dilemma point where we have to make a decision as individuals whether we're going to permanently alter our brains to interface with computers. The older ones amongst us are almost certainly not going to go for it, although some will. But the younger ones, the under 18s, I think we'd be hard pushed to get an upkeep of less than 80%. And in some parts of the world, China, compulsory.
Well,
I was going to say they're on a choice in China.
So we could very well find that
I mean, that's more
humanity
just
becomes divergent enough that we do think of ourselves as separate species, one organic, one technological. It could very well be that the Cybermen are an idea that draws from so deep in our psyche and so deep in reality
Oh,
of
definitely
our
does.
conflicted
Oh, yeah.
relationship with technology that they could very well, more than anything else Doctor Who's ever done, be a prophecy of the future.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite
And I think this is part of why they are so special and why Doctor Who fans who like to think about things have always found the Cybermen so very intriguing
Yeah.
because they open up all of these possibilities. And
Yeah.
we've opened all this up and we've not even tried to open up the Tomb of the Cybermen yet.
Nowhere near yet.
Yeah.
Well, I think we better close that gap. Oh, look, it's the Tomb of the Cybermen, everybody.
Ta-da!
It's 1992 and I'm back on the bus from getting this thing from HMV and I'm about to slam it in the video and watch the out of it. Because, of course, Tomb of the Cybermen was a legend for coming back to us. Oh, it was unbelievable.
Mm,
It was, oh my God. This was the greatest, I think, of all the new episode returns.
yeah. That.
To get the whole thing. And it's a delight. Tomb of the Cybermen is a delight of the craft of 60s television.
Yeah.
From the fake model shots to Salvat, there's a rocket ship sitting in a quarry, to the fake doors of the tomb, to seeing into the studio and the ominous metal steps that boom of plywood.
Yeah.
The whole thing's fantastic from
Yeah.
start to finish.
It's awesome.
And even with its subtle insinuations of racism that get levelled at it these days.
Oh yeah, well yeah, that goes without saying. Sadly.
Just because the bad guys for once weren't white, that's racist, is it?
Apparently so.
I want to think that through the way around, perhaps, but yeah.
Yeah, well.
But the idea, the mystery of it is just so fantastic. And the opening up on those doors, those imposing cyber doors, and the guy gets electrocuted, and of course the Doctor has to come along, and the Doctor's behaving very mischievously in this story.
Very, very.
Because on the one hand, he thinks he shouldn't interfere and make it happen. On the other hand, he can't resist. And he can see that the humans are such idiots, but if he leaves them alone, they'll cause a disaster anyway.
Oh, yeah. Without
which I think is ultimately the reason he stays.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Because he knows that these morons are going
to mess it up big time.
Going to get themselves killed, etc. Yeah,
absolutely.
But also because he needs to know. He needs to know what are the Cybermen up to. What is this place? What is their plan? Because he knows it wasn't built for nothing.
Yeah.
So the archaeological team splits up. One goes and explores one room. One goes and explores another. They find a cyber form regenerator, which Victoria gets trapped in for a short while. And Jamie and can't remember the character's name, but one of the young men on the archaeology team find a room that projects fully pictures on the wall that turn out to be a subliminal target for a weapons testing outfit, which then shoots the guy in the back, giving us a wonderful cliffhanger, by the way. And the sound effect of the cyber guns going off, that brilliant whoosh bang sort of sound to them. Wonderful. Hello, TARDIS Spider. He's turned up in the chat.
Yes, he has. Hello, TARDIS Spider.
And then it could part 2, the mystery deepens, and logic codes and ands and ors and logic gates. And if you break it down into the basic binary blocks, you can express the power sequence as a series of integers. But I wouldn't do it if I were you.
No, don't.
And yes, the hatch opens. And what an ominous beast of a hatch it is. And peering down the echo of the shaft. And they agree to go down there. And as they get down there, they find the honeycomb. Thousands of Cybermen in suspended animation. all arranged around one larger, bigger tomb door. And as the Doctor and co are staring at this, Eric Krieg's busy pushing buttons in the background. And suddenly it's all thawing. And he pulls a gun on them.
Yeah.
Because he's from the Brotherhood of Logicians. And it's perfectly logical. But if they just demand stuff from the Cybermen, they'll give them everything we want. Because surely that's logical. What a bunch of big kids.
Yeah.
With no common sense whatsoever. Can't they read history books? You know? But no. I'll just go and tell them to give me all their power, and they will.
Yes, of course.
But
it was our plan.
It's me, Eric Krieg, my genius. Now I know you're mad. And of course, things are warming up, but then there's a bit of a reversal, we cool back down again, but there's a reversal again, and then we're warming up again. And that's the end of part 2. As the Cybermen burst, well, sort of, not so much burst, to sort of slide through the cellophane and emerge from their tombs, from their catacombs. They'll assemble in front of the big door and open it. It's the big head. It's the cyber controller, the biggest, most brainiest, controlliest Cybermen we've ever seen. And he utters those immortal lines. You belong to us. You will be like us. And then the sting. And it's part 2 over, you know. And then part 3 is a sort of a cyber haggle, really. And some cyber mats start coming into things. And this idea of keeping the Cybermen trapped down there, while at the same time they secretly got a brain control over poor old Toberman. And this is Bad Wolf has joined us. You know our ways. That's the ways.
You know our ways.
And all of his action and adventure and mad plotting and reversal all turns up with the cyber controller making it out of a tomb to the control room and getting shot in the chest with his own damn cyber gun. I mean, that's just, you let these people in. Right?
Yeah, well, you see, give them an inch.
This is what you get, right?
Yep.
Just, you know, organics, you know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And finally, you know, Toberman using his giant strength and metal cyber arms to force the door shut from the other side, causing a massive electrical shock to apparently kill both the controller and, of course, to roast poor Toberman himself. And that is the end as the dust blows over the now sealed tomb of the Cybermen.
Awesome.
Look, just this story is just awesome, and it's the start of arguably one of the most awesome seasons of all of Classic Who, season 5. So you know, I mean, there's just straight up classics all the way. And another story cementing the Cybermen as the absolute, you know, the new kings of Doctor Who, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
What does the panel say, guys? Any comments on Tomb Cybermen?
Oh
well, this was. Oh, sorry.
No, so I was just saying. I thought one of my favourite shots of that is when they actually do start coming. All the Cybermen start coming out the plastic. Sends shivers down your spine. Ugh. Awesome.
It's wonderful, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. It's wonderful. It's one of those images that's always just, you know,
just going on mute for a second.
Stuck in my head. It's gone on mute. You know, when it's just throughout Doctor Who, there's always those images that just lock in your brain, and it's that one with it. Yeah,
and it's also a haunting theme to sort of go behind it.
Oh god,
that really does elevate.
Awesome. Yeah. Oh yeah, the music.
Sorry, I love that.
Yeah, but no, I must admit that's one of those images that's just sort of locked in, you know, in my head that when they start coming out the plastic, it's just absolutely fantastic. It really is.
Well, I mean, I agree. This was one that I first saw when I was a young child in the 90s, and I absolutely loved it. So I think that shows you, for all like some people say, oh, it didn't hold up when we finally saw it. Actually, like to a modern, to like what was at that time, you know, like the new generation, I thought it was just as amazing as kids who saw it in the 60s did. I mean, I will say, looking back on it now, as an adult, I think it's not quite perfect as other all-time classic stories like Genesis or Remembrance, because it's true what John said. Cleve, I mean, he's huge, entertaining. Like that actor, it really goes for it. And then now I know you're mad, but it's brilliant. But that doesn't change the fact that his plan is kind of thick. And also the Cybermats who debut in this episode, I don't think they're quite as good, because I mean they're a good idea, and I can see how that scene, the way it was written, would be creepy. But why did they give them those wee cute eyes? Those wee cute eyes.
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. I can see. I would say they were the weakest part of that. To be fair,
my sister loved them because she thought they were cute. You know, like she wanted to own a wee Cyberman and hug it. Like
back in the day, those back in the day when they hadn't got the idea of merchandising, they'd have sold quite well.
Oh, they would have. They would have
sold like, they're sold like hotcakes. But no, I didn't. The eyes didn't seem to fit what they were. To be fair, I mean,
no, I mean,
small. They were scouts,
even though
you know.
Yeah, I suppose. But they don't need to make them babies, so. But
no, not really. But
one thing I will say about this one, though, I think it makes it such a good Cyberman story is it focuses on the body horror element more than others, because we actually see a guy partially converted. And another thing, this was something that I was going to bring up earlier about the differences between the designs, because like I said, I know what you mean, Golden Age geek, about the originals were a bit more horrifying because there was like a body horror element to them. But I think they get back to that with this one, and this is something they do in later stories. When the Cyberman's cut open, it bleeds. It's not just like, wires and explosions like from a robot. You actually do see blood, and what's great is the blood's
that's the thing that started some serious complaints. Actually, some people thought the fight scenes in Tomb of the Cybermen were too horrific to show to children because there was like shaving foam pissing out of it.
Well, I mean, I'm glad they used foam, because that makes it look like the blood has kind of congealed and it's been in amongst this like twisted metal body. It's like really filthy. It looks like it smells. And I think that bit's just perfectly done. And I like the way the Cyberman actually does writhe in pain a wee bit. It reminds you that these are organic creatures underneath. They're not just like battle droids that blow them up, and so I think that was a really, really nice touch. And I don't think that would have been as effective if they didn't look like complete machines like that. That's where that really does come as a shocking moment. So that's one of the best bits in it.
What about you, Golden Age Geek? What do you think of the Tomb of the Cybermen?
Well, again, going back to the sort of design thing, I do understand there are some bits that you can say do go back to that body horror element, but I do not like the design in this episode. I think this has to be the worst Cyberman design, in my opinion. They look like metal penises, literally. If you look at the top of it.
Now you say
it. Well,
oh dear me.
The poor cyber controller. Right? Anything with that handles welded to it is a penis, according to Golden Age Geek.
You know what's quite funny? Sorry, just to interrupt. I don't know if any of you guys remember this. The original video release of Tomb of the Cybermen had an interview with the director before it, where he ironically went, "Well, I think my cyber costumes were better than anyone else's cyber costumes." I just think, God, if he'd heard what you said there, Golden Age Geek.
Yeah, you design penises, mate.
Don't become one of those Doctor Who fans.
Yeah.
Right, carry on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, so but forgetting the design, I do love, of course, the scene where they sort of break out of the plastic. That's always an iconic shot, an iconic scene. Again, with the Cybermats, to kind of reiterate what Bundrel said, Cybermats. But one other thing, just going away from the Cybermen and just for the episode in general, the one scene that I do like is the talk between the Doctor and Victoria, I believe, about family. That is a good scene as well, and it does remind me. I forget the name of it's the episode after the first William Hartnell Daleks one. It's the destruction of
The Edge of
I forget the
Destruction.
name.
The Edge of
Yeah,
Destruction.
Yeah, Edge of
Yeah,
Destruction,
it reminds me of that as well, and how, you know, when people nowadays are saying all these sort of things about the classic era and the classic Doctors, it really just goes to show they're very inexperienced with it, because
Yeah.
those types of moments between the companions, and especially between, you know, Doctor who's the male and a female companion, it really does show the compassion that
Yeah, it does.
Doctor has for the people around them. And I believe the scene where they sort of enter the main sort of base was kind of improvised. I remember hearing some stories of Patrick Troughton and the actor for Jamie sort of playing a prank on the actor for Victoria. I don't know if anyone knows anything
Oh,
about that.
they were always doing that.
They were doing
Yeah.
it
Oh, yes.
constantly.
They were
Constantly, yeah.
always doing that. But
They threw into foam.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think I might have to disagree with you slightly in your comparison of episodes there, only on account that Tomb of the Cybermen considered what many fans consider to be the greatest scene of all in the whole of the Second Doctor's run, which is his conversation about family with Victoria.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And, you know, I mean, I completely agree that there's stuff in Classic, you know, which people who don't know Classic that well really haven't got much emotion, they don't know it's there. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, part 4 of The Massacre, for example, you know,
Oh,
is
yeah.
something that fans who know want that for very good reason. But, you know, I mean, I think Tomb of the Cybermen is on that level.
Yeah.
So I've got to, I mean, I agree that there's great moments, but you can't skip over the fact that Tomb of the Cybermen is one of those stories with one of the greatest of those scenes in it.
Yeah, agreed.
And I do agree with that. I think also why that particular scene works so well as well is because there is a lot of ambiguity to what the Doctor's saying, and, you know, especially the modern writers, they would be good to, you know, take focus of that scene and realize that what the Doctor's saying, he isn't explicitly.
When I was a little girl on Gallifrey, I remember.
Yeah, I've got his Granny Fur was my favourite.
But whenever I
Oh, dear
I don't
Lord.
really have to think about this because I just look at the pictures. I don't have to try to recall them in their mind. That's the sort of thing a man would do.
Sorry, actually, so I don't mean to interrupt anymore, but I'm just saying, remember there was actually a good scene in the Jodie era. I don't mean good, but
No.
one you can contrast.
No, there
that
wasn't.
with.
I will stand some
No,
heresy, but not
no.
that much.
No, sorry, you missed it. I'm not saying it's a good scene. I'm saying it's good to contrast it with, because remember, obviously
Yes.
that scene shows you how
Contrasting.
mature the Doctor can be, but that other one shows you it's when Jodie's like, ooh, and that guy has cancer. Ooh, I'm a bit socially awkward, and she doesn't.
I can't deal with this. I'm too socially awkward.
Sorry, carry on, Golden Age Geek. I just thought it was a
Why
valid
does
point.
anyone even like her? Oh, it's because they want free rides in a joy machine. That's why. Yeah, give some spin in your TARDIS, love.
Sorry, what were you going to say, Golden Age Geek?
Yeah, carry on, because everybody else is telling him to let him finish.
Oh, I
his
don't
point.
like to look at them pipes hanging out the bottom.
But
Carry
what I
on.
was going to say is that the scene
Where
between
they're
the Doctor
from.
and Victoria works so well because the Doctor isn't explicitly revealing everything about his backstory and perhaps the family that he had, but it's done in a way which shows you his feelings towards those he loves without actually revealing anything about his history too much. So
Yeah,
that also works well.
it works really well, really well. Yeah, awesome.
So,
Awesome.
That Jodie
last
scene
thing.
was no worse than Warriors of the Deep. No, I will not have this. Warriors of the Deep was a success, a magnificent success.
Yeah,
Apart from
Oh,
the
don't say that.
The Panto horse, you know.
do not say that to Sadako. He hates Warriors of the Deep as much as I love him with all of our seriously.
If you go back to the Peter Davison episode, I staunchly defended Warriors of the Deep.
yes, she did.
I rather like it.
Yes, she did. I remember.
I agree
But
with
then I'm
Sadako that it's shit, but I think the Jodie scene's worse. I mean, that's what I will say to Sadako is that, like, it's kind of thought of as shit. So it's like, you know, it's like that he doesn't need to worry, if you know what I mean, because it's I think there's very few defenders of it. But anyway, so last thing I was going to say about Tomb of the Cybermen was, again, so just getting back to the Dan Dare thing, the Cyber Controller was originally intended to be a recurring arch enemy for the Doctor. At that point, he was going to be like, that's why he's got the penis head. He was going to be like the Mekon. That was meant to represent like the big dome shaped head. But And obviously, as we know, they later got their kind of meek on with Davros. He became that, like, the Führer figure, the leader of the race of automatons. But do you think the cyber controller could have worked out that way?
Yeah, possible.
It's interesting to think.
It is
know-
interesting.
Well, the only
Yeah.
other time the show has really there was two other times the show has done the cyber controller. The first was in Attack of the Cybermen, and the second was in Age of Steel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the cyber controller in Attack of the Cybermen could have been a black-handled cyber leader just as well. And he wasn't really given enough depth to really believe he was the guy in charge of the cyber race. He didn't quite summon enough authority. But I think perhaps getting the same actor back when his wasteland had considerably expanded since the mid-1960s
Apparently,
undermined the character a little bit. I mean, am I right, gentlemen?
Yes, you are.
Well, apparently, I agree that he
Bit
looks
more,
chubby,
bit
but
more of
apparently,
the fat controller than the cyber controller. You know, I mean,
Yeah, just a bit.
the
bless him,
actor.
you know, it's not fair, but it's life.
Apparently, the actor wasn't fat. It was to do with how the costume was.
Of course, it was. It was for
Of course it
costume.
was.
We all
Yes.
know it was for costume.
Absolutely the costume.
Bullshit.
Well,
Put extra bowls in it, did for you, did they, Michael?
well, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. But,
Yeah, I'm getting told off now. I'm only having fun. Carry on, please.
Well, no, that's all I was going to say. It was just that was all it was. Just that's that, because I feel I have to stick up for him as a man with a bit of a gut myself. I feel I have to stick up. That, you know, he may not have actually had that. He may just have...
I've got a foot in two worlds there, Bojo, because I used to be a man with a bit of a gut, but now I'm most certainly not. So, yeah, well, irony how that works out. Just my cyber bum looked big in this outfit. David Banks was well fashioned for that costume, I must admit.
Indeed.
So Weird in Space.
Yes.
Now, this is another one. I mean, of all this is second on my list of things I really wish would come back next to Direct Master Plan.
Absolutely.
Really?
Because, you know, well, yes. Because it's the final Cyberman story that isn't complete.
Yep.
And I think it's quite a charming story. It's a bit of a strange story. It contains big trouble for Doctor Who canon, by the way, because the Doctor spends a good part of one episode with hospital monitors attached to his nipples, checking his heart singular beat.
Singular. Oh dear.
You know, so yes, there's some issues for Doctor Who canon in Weird on Space, which we've managed to successfully circumnavigate by the fact that no one could watch it.
Yes. So it didn't happen really.
I do persevere with this story, and I think we've got 2 of the episodes currently existing. So you have at least 2 episodes worth of material to allow you to become familiar with the setting and the characters, and I think that always helps. Rather than when the whole story is missing, when you've got at least something to go on, you can get the gist of the scenes.
Yeah.
I think the recon works quite well for Weird in Space. Also, the magical 10 minutes that was stuck on the Macra Terror. We could have had that company, which had all the assets ready to do Weird in Space, but no, the whole thing got handed over to Gary Russell to give us Fury from the Cheapo Deep instead.
Oh, God.
Yes,
Fitzroy crowd strikes again.
Afraid so, boys. As we would have had that Weird in Space, because it would just get on with it, you know.
Yeah.
Still Humpty Hum. Yeah. The actual story itself, you know, it's it's a 6-parter. It's got its padding. You know, there's some malarkey around, floating around in space in spaceships and running out of air and having to get rescued and all this sort of thing. But the basic gist of it is the Cybermen want to take over the wheel, which is this big floating space station that handles all this interstellar communication, in order to subvert the information systems and initiate an invasion of human space.
Yeah. all intents and purposes. Yeah.
And they're defeated once again with a gravity beam.
Yes.
One which was designed to deflect asteroids. But once again, once you take the brackets off it, it can nuke stuff real close. So,
Of course you can.
bye Cybermen, you know.
Yes.
Despite their rather elegant, beautiful butterfly up and down motion cyber spacewalk. Not a little bit funny, never mind. So yeah, and the Cybermen in the wheel had their own particular design that was only used in this one story. It was a kind of a halfway house between the Tomb Cyberman and the Invasion Cyberman. And there's a whole fan culture has spread up around the wheelies.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a whole subculture that demands that we believe that the Wheeling Space Cybermen were the greatest of the 60s cyber designs.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Because we're
Bless you.
Doctor Who fans and we can be a bit strange.
Just a bit. Every now and
It's trying
again.
to be different.
Yeah.
But it's all, if everyone's ever doing an article on the evolution of the Cybermen, then they've got to do the wheelies. As they're known, the Wheeling Space Cybermen. There's even a whole comic book, I think, was written about the Wheeling Space branch of the cyber race.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I must confess.
And of course, Wheeling Space is an important story for another reason, which is the introduction of Wendy Padbury, playing Zoe, and she plays her version of indeed.
Yeah, no, she's one of the best. His companions.
I don't think it's a story that sets Doctor Who on fire. It doesn't do anything especially original, but it is a very it's a sound as a pound season ender, and a really enjoyable watch. So I thoroughly recommend it. But I think it's the next Cyberman story. It was to follow on its heels is season 6, which for me. Is the ultimate because I can't help it. I adore the Invasion so much.
Yes, coming out through the sewers and everywhere.
A brilliant story.
Yeah, it is a very good story.
Well, in Doctor Who world, 6-parters are usually a 2-parter with a 6-parter, or a 2-parter with a 4-parter, or a 4-parter with a 2-parter. The Invasion is unique because it's a 4-parter and then a 4-parter.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is.
And the first half of it is a James Bond movie.
Pretty much.
I always think of it as a James Bond movie.
The
whole tone of the thing. When we first meet Sergeant Benton, we don't think he's a soldier. We think he's a hood. In a plain suit, in a posh car, and of course we meet the Brigadier. For the first time as the Brigadier, newly promoted from Colonel Lethbridge Stewart in the Wheeling Space. So you've got this magnificent introduction of the whole unit concept. So, the Invasion is also a testing bed for the format which was going to keep the show alive for the next 5 years.
Yep.
And it was a format it did really, really well. I mean, not declaring the Cybermen in the title helped a great deal. I don't know how much the audiences would have clocked that the strange, speaky, computery, pipey thing in Tobias Vaughan's office was to do with Cybermen. Some would have done. There was enough clues going on. But it is a wonderfully tense kind of thriller. And a very dark in tone in part 1 as well. People getting murdered. Because they try and drive their lorry out of industrial electromatics property, So it is a good thing we knocked it out of the park as a unit pilot, and
really did.
And it was remarkably fortunate to get so much military support.
Yeah.
Not knocking around with transport aircraft and anti-missile batteries. It all helped to sell it beautifully, as the Sea Devils would just a few years later. So the show took full advantage of that, and staged what for Doctor Who's budget were impressive battle sequences.
Yeah, very impressive. Well, I mean,
And a triumph of a design that really worked and made the Cybermen seem like a real menace.
Yeah.
And they were so much better off with guns in their hands than trying to shoot special effects out of their heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think of the chest raise, though? Like, because they also have that in the invasion. They've got like where it's like it comes out of their chest. I mean, I don't mind that, but it's a bit too similar to the Daleks. The way it lights up the room,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a certain shorthand for shenanigans going on, isn't it? Like, so I mean, I don't mind that at all myself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all right. It serves a purpose. I'm okay with it.
I mean, I love the invasion too. I think it's an absolute classic.
Classic.
It
is
funny though because whilst what you guys said's true, that it's obviously a pilot for Unit. Like, it's weird to think the Cybermen wouldn't return in the era that the invasion basically, set the template for. I mean, that's a bit of a funny, coincidence. It's because Terrence Dix, who still script edited this episode, he hates the Cybermen, and he apparently hated their co-creator Kit Pedler. Like, so that's part of why they didn't show up in the John Pertwee era, though they were apparently planned to appear in. It was going to be Frontier in Space. That story was going to have the Cybermen and Ogrons, and was going to have be a three-way alliance: Daleks, Cybermen, and Master, who were trying to bring down the Earth Empire, which might have been quite cool, actually.
The Cybermen do get a cameo in the Pertwee era. One appears on camera in the miniscope in Carnival Monsters.
Yeah,
but that is the only Pertwee reference to the Cybermen until you get to Five Doctors, which then canonizes John Pertwee having lots of malarkey with Cybermen. So it depends how you squint at it. And then Terrence Dix wrote that. So where does that put us on the he hated Jerry Davis theory?
Oh no, it wasn't Jerry Davis. Kit Pedler, and Sadako asked what was his beef with him. I'll just say it was apparently that Terrence Dix didn't think Kit Pedler was a good writer. He felt that Kit Pedler was only good for ideas, and apparently Kit Pedler got all huffy, saying, "I'm like a great writer. I'm not just something you go to for ideas." And Terrence Dix said,
"Yeah, be a dick."
That
is just being a dick. But oh wow,
they said that's all you're good for is just a couple of ideas. You're not a writer, and so they really didn't see eye to eye.
I can understand it, to be fair.
Matt Panda is absolutely right, but Douglas Camfield was a huge factor in the invasion's success.
Yeah.
He always pushed to get the very best he could, and the shots he achieved wonderfully sell the story.
Yeah.
And I include the tension of parts 1 to 4. I think it's really important to achieve good tension in Doctor Who. Douglas Camfield was a master.
The Cybermen in St. Paul's is on a par with them coming out of the tombs, I think, in terms of just
and
then it sticks in your head. And they're walking down. It's brilliant.
Yeah, great shot that is. Absolutely stunning shot. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, it was always cited as a "do you remember" moment.
Yeah,
which is exactly why New Who ripped it off when it came to Capaldi's first Cyberman story.
God!
Blatantly just put the Master at St. Paul's Cathedral for no reason, being able to do it again.
Yeah, but it didn't work as well.
Because it had no originality.
Exactly, it's copied. Yeah.
I know. Remember, Kate even drops the head of an invasion US Cyberman at their feet as part of some stupid badass boast.
Yeah.
So cringy.
Golden Age Kate, what did you think of the invasion?
Just not about the episode itself, but the structure of the episode. I've always found the 7-8 parters, not that they're a struggle to go through, but I do kind of find them hard to be invested in. But this story, above all else is, of course, very entertaining, very much a classic. And of course, I do like the on-set location, how they actually did a lot of, stuff in the actual London streets. I can see how that would help. So it's a bit like the Dalek invasion of Earth when they used on-set location for that, and then of course that very much related to a lot of people, and in a way sort of added a scare factor.
Cybermen are down the pub.
Cybermen down the pub.
Basically, wasn't it? Going around one street corner, walking down the side of that pub.
Yeah,
Hey, up there could be in between me and my pie.
That's unbelievable.
I would say, with the character of Vaughn as well, it's one thing that really separates him from a lot of the other sort of humans that the Cybermen sort of ally themselves with to try and gain an advantage over the other humans. I would say with him, it's very good because you do have these moments when he is mostly silent, but then he has this sort of sudden burst of anger, which doesn't tell you a lot explicitly, but does tell you that perhaps this is sort of hard for him to go through, and also it does add a lot of
a man,
sort of depth to him.
Tobias Bourne is a man in a rage at the stupidity of the human race, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's become powerful. He's become powerful by being clever, and by producing clever products, and as such, he's treated as a god in his field, isn't he? The great Tobias Bourne. But he still can't make people be sensible, and it's driving him nuts. And then he goes megalomaniacal and plan to control the world. And then he goes, "Well, I'll steal the power I need to do it. I'll use these aliens and then trick them." Which a real high stakes gambler.
Yeah,
Tobias Bourne.
Massively.
But beyond, but then that hides the fiction, you see, because it's he has to project the fiction that his life is completely under control, but in reality, he's boiling over with this rage, but just shizzles out of him when things start to go helter skelter, to the point where he ends up going, "Well, F you, Cybermen, I'm going to bring you down because you dared think you could do without me."
Yeah.
There are quite a lot of interesting parallels between this and the Daleks' master plan, in that both of them are the big story at like the end of the Doctor's eras that are about like what's been the main villain of their era. Daleks are the big guys of Hartnell, Cybermen are the big guys of Troughton, and obviously as they're both a lot longer. And what's even more kind of interesting is both have got a human villain played by Kevin Stoney, who's this same kind of like Machiavellian, thinks he can get the better of them, thinks he can use them for his own ends, and then dies like pitifully and in disgrace.
We have a pretty epic Sadako comment here regarding Tobias Bourne. If he was a real character, he would definitely be part of the EU.
Indeed.
I would think he'd be right to be the EU's technology and electronics policy.
Absolutely, 100%.
Sorry, just a bit.
With all computer products sold in the EU must have an electromagnetic chip inside them.
Must have.
So another thing about Tobias Vaughan, I don't know if anyone knows this, because those like Virgin New Adventure crap in the 90s, but from what I read in either them or some of the other books by the Fitzroy mob, isn't it like that they revealed Tobias Vaughan survived the invasion because his mind got sent into a machine, and then he becomes he was apparently the architect behind all the Pertwee invasions or something stupid like that. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's like one of the stories. Does anyone know a bit more about that? Or
never heard of it. Is that a Big Finish story? Is it?
No, it's by the ones that do Big Finish before they did Big Finish.
I've never come across. I've never come across that.
Got such shit, isn't it?
What can I use as a hook to try and write a novel on? Some hooks are stronger than others. I secretly had my brain beamed away at the last moment. It's never a good start.
No.
It's not the best start of a story, is it?
So, but then, alas, for whatever reason, whether it was because Terence Dicks didn't think Kit Pedler was that good a writer, whatever the reason, we didn't see the Cybermen for quite a few more years.
No,
They lay quiet,
very
but
quiet.
in the dark, we plotted and planned. And by the time Tom Baker had become the Doctor, it was time for their revenge.
Revengi. Revengi of the Cybermen.
On Voga, the planet of gold.
Yes.
Right, okay. Worst idea ever. The Cybermen are silver coloured. Gold is more valuable than silver, so
Yeah.
gold defeats the Cybermen.
Yes. Gold kills them.
I don't
Well,
like writing that dumbs down to the audience, and that is just dumb.
It's
Yeah.
dumb.
Over.
But I think it's not as badly done in this one, where you at least have to sprinkle gold dust into their chests. And the later ones where it gets like a gold arrow touches them and they blow up.
Oh no, Ocean Gold, run away! Run away!
Someone said you could play Spandau Ballet's song Gold and they'd all explode. That's how allergic they become.
Gold! Boom!
I mean, if the only problem with gold is it clogs up their chest units, I mean, there's no end of things that clog up their chest units. Just, just wang some gravel in there, see everything like that.
Oh, yeah.
What about chucking a barrel of oil over them? Would we take that all right? And then setting it on fire. See how you like it hot, Cyberman. I mean, there's so many ways to deal with Cyberman that don't involve gold. So the idea that weaponizing gold could be ever turn the tide of a war against Cybermen is just beyond stupid. And I think it's very unfortunate because I think it weakened the Cybermen from that point on. And of course, back to the earlier part of the stream when we were saying, about how if you don't have to extend the ideas of the Cybermen very far to see how they become a foe that you simply can't beat. So there's always been this need to sort of have them right on the back foot. But back footing them off the back foot. And I mean, in Revenge of the Cybermen, the Doctor castigates the Cybermen as literally being a pathetic bunch of tin soldiers still flying around in a knackered spaceship. You're delusional, robot brains. It's not what he says, but it's what he means. He means they're a joke.
Yeah.
So when you bring it back to the Cybermen and the Doctor is telling them they're a joke, it's not surprising this didn't land that well.
You know who's to blame for it, though? It's quite an interesting... it's actually Robert Holmes, and I think this is quite... Because now, I just want to say right up front that I think Robert Holmes was obviously a brilliant writer and wrote some of the best, if not the best, stories. But I don't like the way he is kind of made out to be this like messiah-like figure who was always right, because he did have, I mean, like every writer, he had a lot of faults, and he actually wrote Revenge of the Cybermen. Jay Davis handed in like an outline, but they basically had to scrap it. Like the story was more or less rewritten from scratch by Robert Holmes, and he was a terrible, terrible snob when it came to recurring villains. I mean, I think he was a bit of a like the New Who thing. If he looked down on the viewers, he thought, I'm supposed to bring back these stupid, monsters just for the kids, and I'm a better writer. I know better than that. So he never bothered his arse to like do anything with them, and he was forced to include Daleks and Cybermen in his first year. And when it came to the Cybermen, he had to write their story. So I honestly don't think he bothered to look at anything that made them scary. Like, because see, when you watch the story, they're not written as the Cybermen. There's not any mention of them converting people. They're really, really, over emotional. I mean, that cyber leader goes into a big speech about how this explosion will be the most beautiful thing in history. There's even a bit where the Doctor riles him. Like, he's supposed to have no emotions, but the Doctor, pisses him off in order to outsmart him. And so, I think that was Robert Holmes. He just didn't really get them. Even if you read his biography, there's a bit where he mentions that he's rewritten Revenge of the Cybermen 3 times, and he can't get anything out of it because the Cybermen are boring. No writer could do anything interesting with them. So he just like basically tossed it in as it was. And so yeah, I think that sort of botched their big comeback in the 70s. And you know, the greater irony is, see if he actually had bothered his arse, the Cybermen would have actually been a really good fit for Robert Holmes' style, because he does stories that are like in a gothic horror style, which is what Tomb of the Cybermen is. It's the precursor. It's like a Hammer horror mummy movie where they go into a tomb and there's the monsters there. Also, his stories tended to focus on body horror. And finally, like the biggest cliche in his stories is that he uses all the time is that there's a monster, a villain who was once all powerful but is now, fallen from grace and is in hiding, trying to rebuild their power. So all three of those things, they all apply to the Cybermen. So if he looked at them, he could have done a really good cyber story, but he was a snob who thought they're just kiddie stuff to be brought back. And so he just wrote them as generic robo killers, and that's why Revenge is, I think, probably the weakest of all the original Cybermen stories.
I see that.
There's a lot there to agree with. Yeah, there's a lot there to agree with. I mean, Revenge of the Cybermen tries.
Yeah,
it definitely tries, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but someone pointed out in the chat. But the Doctor tries to ambush the Cybermen with gold. It doesn't work. And that they are a threat in the story, and I agree with that. But I think the Cybermen's an effective threat as well, though I don't know why they had to grow to be as long as vacuum cleaner hoses, but there you are. Yeah, I do. The Wookiee Hole incidents, the making of his story is infamous.
Very infamous.
As is the use of the Gallifreyan symbol. It was simply a real nifty bit of design. No one will notice. We used it 2 years ago. Yeah, let's use it again. It's as simple as that. Only the second time it had more impact because it wasn't the idiot Bogans, it was actually Gallifrey that was using it, so it mattered more. Yes, we're aware of that one. Revenge is definitely a better story than Attack or Silver Nemesis. The second,
it might be better than
the first.
Might be better than Silver Nemesis.
I don't
for me.
agree it's better than Attack.
No, definitely not. Attack's actually
especially not Attack Part
underrated. Yeah, Attack I think's really underrated, to be honest. I think it gets a bit of a hard rap because as you personally know, Ian Levine, who's supposed to have written it, can be quite a prickly, controversial figure in fandom.
Really?
What are you
really? I never know.
Yes.
I never noticed he was a prickly gentleman, yeah.
But divorced from that, which can still be hilarious, then Attack of the Cybermen, which by me, I don't know who wrote it, I'm not getting into that, but divorced from that, I think it's actually a really good use of the Cybermen personally. We compare it to this story, you see them converting people, it actually uses them for what they're scary, for what their purpose is. Whereas Revenge, like I said, they're just generic robo killers, basically.
Yeah.
So, Golden Age Geek, what have you seen? Revenge of the Cybermen. What did you think of this one?
Yeah.
If you have,
I really didn't like this one. When I was first watching it some time ago, I was looking up on Reddit to see what people's general thoughts are because I was watching. I was thinking, why am I not liking this? Is there something wrong with me? But yeah, I don't like this one. With the thing with the gold, though, I don't necessarily hate the initial idea. It could have been handled a lot better, but the Doctor's explanation of it's a non-corrosive metal, therefore it can sort of get in there and trap their respiratory system. I don't think that's a dumb idea. It certainly could have been handled a lot better, I think. Yeah. Certainly sort of getting little shavings of gold. I think that's a bit dumb, certainly. But especially the thing with the arrow that got brought up in for a different story. But yeah, this episode really didn't do it for me. I didn't buy into the tension between the race on the planet. That just sort of went by my head so much. The final part I don't necessarily hate, especially when Sarah Jane is taken to the sort of the space station, whatever it is. But the whole thing with the bombs being strapped to them, and I just saw that as sort of a bit sort of convoluted, a bit sort of generic in that I think the Cybermen could have achieved their goals a lot better than sort of strapping a bomb to the Doctor and sort of providing him with a way of escaping. It seems like their goals could have been much more easily achieved if they just sort of done what they wanted to do themselves.
Yeah.
But the thing with the Cybermats and how they were spreading the disease, I can see the sort of appeal of that. It's kind of funny when they're sort of jumping on people. The effects are a little bit mashy there,
but the problem is, but it is just mashing together Moonbase with Tomb of the Cybermen.
Yeah, and that's the
You
thing
know,
I've noticed with a lot of the Cybermen stories.
That's the problem with Revenge of the Cybermen. It is actually playing it really terribly safe.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, when you've got a situation like that where you've got what did they have 3 or 4 costumes for that story, they haven't got much to play with to sort of conjure up with. And I think a story like that, the Cybermen work best when they're in the background watching. And maybe only showing themselves at the end, sort of thing. I think that would have worked well for a format like Revenge. Like, what if the Doctor and Sarah and Harry had appeared not on the station but on Voga, and Voga's under attack by the station, and using its station defense lasers or something, to shoot up the asteroid. Because the humans in the station have been taken over by the Cybermen.
Yeah.
I think a story like that would have perhaps given more scope, given you couldn't do a Cybermen overwhelming story with 3 Cybermen as total resources. But a story like that could perhaps have shown more of their depth.
Yeah. I see it.
But they're really just a bunch of arseholes who turn up, plant bombs, and sod off.
Yeah, basically.
Which isn't really all that inspiring, or
not really. No.
They don't leave an impression as a result of his story.
Yeah, agreed.
Unless, of course, it was 1983 and you were a fan who didn't know better and you shelled out for 80 quid for this on the basis of the Earthshock Cyberman on the cover. And you must have felt like you got the dodgiest Doctor Who bootleg ever.
I can't believe this was the first one released on. I know why, because of, as you say, Earthshock. But like, God, this was the first one that was released on video. Unbelievable.
This Earthshock, you fools, not this one.
I know.
Hey, last one. Let's show another one. She's a bit shitter.
Yeah, basically.
David Collins, who was the leader of the Vogans. One thing I will say, I actually didn't matter. I thought he was quite a good character.
He's a trooper.
He's good.
He did a number of good turns for Doctor Who, of course. Gibbering with robophobia under the desk in Robots of Death. Is a great part for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is his weakest part. But I felt he was a reasonably interesting villain who had quite a somewhat sympathetic.
He's got a good voice, which was important. Which was important under that mask.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They hired a whole bunch of projectors,
His death scene is quite funny in a hammy way. My skyscraper, my glory! Oh! Me and my brother used to laugh our arses off at that when we were young. My glory!
And then there's just slapping the NASA footage from the space rocket, which everyone knew where that footage came from. It's so cheap, everyone knows. How do you even try and get away with blagging the Apollo launch? I go, oh, look, it's the Vogan rocket, everyone.
Also, the outtakes when they have to say they're headed for the biggest bang in history. Apparently, Tom Baker and Elizabeth Sladen just could not stop laughing. No wonder. Biggest bang. They must have thought there was a better way of saying that. Come on.
Gotta be.
It's like that recent interview where Russell T Davies is talking about writing. He goes, "Oh, when I reach a climax, it's fantastic." It's like, no, seriously.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, don't. I don't need to know about that.
No, we really don't. I bet it isn't really. I'll be honest.
This is what people in the public eye have to consider when they moderate their speech.
Just a bit.
Yes. Well, I mean, Revenge of the Cybermen kind of left the Cybermen in a very flat place.
Yeah, it did.
And we had yet another long desert lack of Cyberman stories because they didn't show up again during the entire of the rest of Todd Baker's run.
No.
But as we have discussed in detail in our 5th Doctor episode, Earthshock was just this most incredible triumph.
Oh, brilliant.
And I think established the legend of the Cybermen forever, because here was one story where they were certainly allowed to be powerful.
Oh God, yeah.
Although still skulking around to a certain extent, because they weren't looking for a straight fight.
No.
But it took malarkey with time itself to undo their dastardly plan.
Indeed.
I'm a little muffly. I'm not sure what to do about muffly. Do I want to try and play her or anything? No, not especially.
No, don't touch stuff. Don't touch stuff.
As long as my voice is loud enough.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, you're projecting very well now, sir. Very well. Very well.
So I don't want to overlabour talking through Earthshock because we've talked about it so much.
We did, yeah, we did.
A lot. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it.
It's a must.
It's not optional.
No.
If you want to experience classic Doctor Who Cybermen, this is the story more than any other. Even back more than Tomb of Cybermen.
I'd say it holds up a lot more. It's like not just a great script, but it's so well directed. There's not any laughable production values. It just holds up really, really well. It's a perfect Doctor Who story in almost every respect, to be honest.
Sorry, Time Flight, we stole your underpants.
Oh God!
Time Flight, just like walking around mugged of everything he's got.
Oh.
David Banks, as a story, it really stands up.
Oh, it's just
if there was a classic Who that should have got BAFTA awards and whatnot, Earthshock was it.
Definitely, but I'm just thinking we should give a shout out as well to David Banks, because he was a brilliant cyber leader, and I think he's on a par with. I'm sad I can't remember his name, but the actor who played the Ice Lord in the last 3 Ice Warrior stories, and Kevin Lindsay, who played Lynx and Styre, and obviously Michael Wisher, who played Davros. I'd say those 4 actors are the best when it comes to the monsters in classic Who.
He does a lot with keeping his shoulders straight and turning his hips to kind of project him into the scene and give him menace.
Yeah.
The way
he had a great voice.
And the voice really worked.
Oh God, yeah.
So I think he's among the top 4 monster actors. He really made it his own and became the cyber leader. I mean, he was also given more chances to do it, but still, he was a lot better than Robbie Kay. No, not Robbie Kay. What's his name? That's a different actor. Who's the guy that it's Christopher Robbie, isn't it, that played it in Revenge of the Cybermen? It was a bit more campy.
Yeah, a bit more campy. Yeah. But no, it was good. David Banks.
It's hard to pull off hard guy in flares.
Yeah. Very true.
Walking around with his hands and his hips though didn't really help.
No, not really.
Consider a classic just because it had a bigger budget. That's controversial, that is.
Ooh.
That's fair enough. It's his point of view.
It's his point of view. It's true. It did have a bigger budget.
I don't know about the overrated part. I really don't think it is overrated.
No, I don't think so.
I think it's brilliant. I
love the March of the Cybermen theme. I think that's a really that debuts, I believe, in this one.
The one time that you used some Quantal actually worked as well.
Yeah.
Because I mean, at least it gives you the impression of armies of Cybermen marching all over the place. I mean, it's a bit of a dodgy effect, really, but it just pulls it off.
Just managed it. It just worked. It just worked.
So, I mean, the Cybermen then try to return to their origins with Attack of the Cybermen.
Also, we're not going to mention the 5 Doctors.
Oh, yeah. They show up in that.
Yeah, don't forget that. Don't forget the 5 Doctors. That small.
Sorry, my brain's starting to get tired. Thank you
It's
very
okay.
much,
It's
George.
all right.
Yeah.
No worries.
Well, being as you mentioned it, you go ahead and tell us about Cybermen.
Yeah, you go on then. Go on, Boris.
Oh God, okay.
Look at that.
Well, yeah,
Self volunteered, everybody.
Yeah, well done,
Okay.
mate.
Okay, well, it's just why you know the story to this. Bad guy Barusa, for some reason, I'm still not quite sure why. He places all the doctors into the death zone so they can help him get, the Rassilon's secret of immortality. But why didn't just bring them to the tower and why put them in the death zone? I don't know. But either way, they have to make their way through there with lots of their companions. And there's a Dalek in there. There's lots of Cybermen, a Yeti, and a Rassilon warrior robot, and they stick the Master in too. So everyone's involved. And sadly, even though the Cybermen get more focus than the other villains, it's not a good showing for them because, as Sadako points out, they get their arses kicked. And again, I hate to say, this was Terrence Dicks being a dick as well because Eric Saward, who loves the Cybermen, and he wrote Earthshot, he wanted the Cybermen to be the main villains of this. But again, Terrence Dicks hated them and was reluctant to include them. So basically, Terrence Dicks thought, okay, you want Cybermen, I'll fucking give you Cybermen. And he had them get their arses kicked by the Rassilon warrior robot and by the Master. And it's not just to get their arses kicked, he made them look like supreme doofuses. Like, at no point when that Rassilon warrior robot is slicing and dicing them, do any of them think, maybe I should hide behind a rock. They just stand there.
Don't take cover. Whatever you do, don't take cover. Just stand there and let it happen.
Best of all,
what about laying down suppressing fire, Copy?
Oh well, of course, but of course they're all just
you can at least light the area, make the bugger dance a bit.
Yeah, have a proper go. Have a proper go. Just stand there and go, what's he doing? Oh, there's another one dead. Oh, what's happening now? Oh, there's another one dead. No, get on with it.
David, what happened to your head?
Best of all, when like the Master lures them across the like chessboard or whatever that blows them up. If you look closely, you can see one of them actually steps onto it after the others are being zapped. That's how stupid the Cybermen are in that one.
Yeah.
They
all died. They all died. I must join them and step on the same thing. Boom. Oh, look, it worked. I died as well.
Just to be clear about it, I like Terrence Dicks as a writer, and I think he was probably the best script editor the show had. But sadly, he could, much like Ian Levine, he was a fascinating man, but he could be a bit of a dick. And in this case, I think this is probably his biggest dick move as a writer, to completely undermine one of the big icons of the franchise just because he had like a petty beef with their creator and the guy who, like the current script editor who really liked him. So I do like the 5 Doctors as well, just to be clear. I think it's a really, really enjoyable, brilliant story, but it's not the Cybermen's finest hour, put it that way.
No.
They're there to lose.
Yes, they're there just to lose.
It couldn't be more obvious that they're there to lose. So that's probably why brains farted it and moved straight on to Attack of the Cybermen, is something like that.
One last thing to say: the sequence where they get slaughtered is absolutely stunning visually. That's all I will say.
Well, they do lose well. Yes.
Yeah.
They die with glory.
And puking sound effects and bending over and taking it behind. Yeah, they lose very well.
Yeah.
They lose probably like no other Doctor Who monster can.
Oh, they lost with glory.
So carry on to Attack.
Well, Attack of the Cybermen is an attempt to go right back to the origins of Cybermen and bring Mondas back into the plot line, while not actually featuring Mondas or anyone directly from Mondas. So it all like why?
Yeah,
it's more like the why of the Cybermen.
Yeah, that's the better title, way better title.
So it's definitely an example of bad fan fiction getting into production in the show.
Indeed.
Whoever wrote it.
Yeah. No, it was
But
not good.
that criticism aside, you know, they stomp about lovely, and they are great, especially in part 1. You know,
Yeah.
hang on, no, I can't. Modern times, I can't just go excitedly say, "Oh, the Black Cyberman was really good." You know, current day that doesn't scan so well.
Yes.
I shall have to modify it to the Stealth Cyberman was an impressive design, and
Yes, the stealth one.
12-year-old me thought that actually hiding in the tunnel was quite clever. As opposed to like being a silver disco boy going, "I'm here, baby."
Yeah.
I personally like the Cyber Lieutenant in this one. He's so hilarious because he's so touchy and so like over emotional when Lytton is, you know, like there. And he's like, "You show more respect."
Yeah.
"You show more respect." And then the Cyber, like, "You'll be made into one of us," and the Lieutenant's like, "You're bloody lucky."
Oh,
is everything okay?
is everything okay? Because it's a funny noise now. We all good?
I think
Yeah,
John may
me?
have knocked out his mic.
Yeah, am I back? I noticed my.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, that explains, John.
Am I quiet at the moment, or am I normal?
You were, but
No,
you just
can hear you.
pulled your mic out. So
I stretched to reach my sandwich. You see, it was a bad idea for my mic connection.
that's better. There you go.
So, sorry, Golden Age Geek. Cybermen, just I'm just curious.
He's going for it. He's gone for his sandwich again. The sandwich is out of reach. He can't reach the sandwich. Go on then, Golden Age Geek. What did you think of?
Well, with this one, as you say, it's kind of returning to a bit of form for Cybermen. It certainly felt more ambitious than the certainly last few that we had. I will say though, the one particular scene where Lytton's hands get like sort of like bashed to fuck or whatever. I was quite like surprised that sort of thing would have been shown as much as it was. I was thinking, oh, that's a bit much.
It was a bit harsh.
Yeah, and then of course the one bit that I did find most interesting about this one was kind of the opening scenes with the Sixth Doctor trying to sort of like fix the chameleon circuit of the TARDIS. Of course, you know, that's kind of like a sort of fan moment. It's not really one that really aids itself much to the story, but it's a bit like Journey to the Center of the TARDIS in the sense that it's just something that every fan, I think, would think it'd be quite interesting to see. Yeah. So that bit, and especially the different sort of structures that it takes. Again, that's just something I just fan out over whenever I see that. But the Cybermen, again, it feels a bit like a return to form. Not as successful as perhaps some of the Dalek stories surrounding it, but I can see. I think Burundra said he thinks this. I believe it was Burundra that said that he thinks it's a little bit like underrated, maybe a little bit unfairly hated. I can kind of see where he's coming from there.
Yeah. It is
well, personally, I really like the way they developed Lytton. Was actually quite good. A lot of people often tear into it and say that it's stupid because the Doctor feels guilty because Lytton doesn't do anything heroic in it.
Yeah.
True. Because I think he is very heroic in it, Lytton, because you have to remember. Yeah, I mean, it's like he's not just working for the Cryons for money, because when the Cybermen capture him, like they offer to let him go, but he refuses to say anything in order to protect the Cryons and humanity. So I think that, you know, like basically getting tortured and converted to protect humanity, that was kind of reason enough for the Doctor to think that he doubted him. And I think it did add a wee bit of ambiguity to it. So yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting development. Yeah. And again, the other good thing about this is that it does return to what, see, I think, and this has been an issue in classic Who I Knew Who, when you're going to bring back a monster like the Daleks and the Cybermen and the Master even, you have to make sure that you use them in a way that only they can be used. You know, like the Master, only the Master can be kind of this manipulative, suave villain that gets into people's minds. Only the Daleks can really touch on race hatred. And with the Cybermen, only they can really touch on the horror of being converted, and of you will be like us. And this one really puts that at the forefront. There's some really scary moments where you see Lytton getting converted, and even just random people. So that's why I think this one gets a bit, really shit. Is the Cryons? The Cryons, they look stupid. Oh, John's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. I think he might have problems with his mics. We'll just carry on. He'll come back.
Okay, well, I was just saying the Cryons look. Okay, good. The Cryons look stupid. They're a pretty bad idea because they said they wanted them to be all women to have a war of the sexes thing, but I think those are always the worst sci-fi stories.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Well, the Cryons aren't the worst race, aren't the worst aliens Doctor Who ever came up with, but they weren't necessarily
pretty bad.
Well,
someone pointed out that they are basically. Someone pointed out that they're basically feminists, the species, because they die as soon as they leave their safe space. They're implied to all be lesbians the way they're stroking Perry. And they've got moustaches as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, they're kind of... The Cybermen were defeated by Tumblr, the species.
I mean, Perry was in a very nice tight pink outfit. We can't bash them too hard for that.
No, we can't. We'd also be tempted. We would have been majorly tempted.
I noticed Time Prophet was asking me what is in my sandwich, because my sandwich has caused me a lot of trouble.
Yes, it caused you a lot of trouble.
I had to wiggle around a lot to get my mic back. But it is tomato, blue cheese, salad leaves, and a good squirt of salad cream.
Yeah, sounds
no bacon.
No bacon.
Well, fatty and soft. You see, it's very much my thing at the moment. So I find them quite tasty. Yes. Well, here let's do a controversial opinion.
Oh, okay.
After Attack of the Cyberman, all the way up to the present day, there have only been 2 noteworthy Cybermen stories.
Okay.
Those being Rise of the Cybermen, Age of Steel, and World Enough in Time, the Dr. Falls.
Yeah.
And that every other time the Cybermen have appeared since then, since Silver Nemesis onwards, they've never reached their potential. Now, let's disagree. Go on then. Go for it, Boranger. What do you disagree about that? Do you think Silver Nemesis, for example, got merit or?
Oh, sorry, I think I'm a few seconds behind. Sorry if I was interrupting. I think I might be a few.
No, you're fine. Carry on. Yeah,
I'm good. Great. Okay. Well, I mean, I largely agree with you, John. That they definitely haven't been used to their full potential. I mean, we've had turds like Closing Time and Nightmare in Silver and Dark Water, which is the worst one for me. But I think I'm a big fan of the next Doctor. It might not be the best Cyberman story, but I think it's a really, really enjoyable. I'd say it's the best Christmas special, to be honest. It's a real fun romp. And, the Cyber King, I think, is a really cool... I mean, okay, it's fairly stupid, but it's a pretty cool idea. And I love the setting. And what's that actor again? He played the governor in The Walking Dead. He's a really, really good actor. He's great in it.
David Morrissey.
Oh, David Morrissey.
Yeah, David Morrissey.
David Morrissey, yeah.
Morrissey.
That's what I mean. So, and I think that twist was quite good because I genuinely thought he was going to be the next Doctor. So, and the way they got round that, like, it was actually it wasn't just clickbait. It was actually quite a clever wee twist. So, yeah, overall, and I like the cyber animals. I felt that was quite a cool new twist to them. So, overall, yeah, I think the next Doctor is a really good story. But other than that, I would agree with you. So, that's basically three noteworthy Cyberman stories.
I'm going to watch the next Doctor again. Because it's true. And I will have a look and I will give it a look and see if I could include it as 3 stories.
Yeah.
But
it's not much more.
I'm not too sure.
Much more.
I'm not too sure. I think that the Cyber King concept really does kick it in the nuts right at the end. It doesn't need that.
Well, I can understand, definitely. But yeah, again,
sorry, urgent question from the chat. It's wholemeal with seeds and nuts in it.
Nice, nice bread.
I don't skimp on the bread. I don't have that starched, bleached white bread from Co-op.
Oh no, no,
I have something better than that. I need to make the most of my sandwiches.
Yes, you've got to have the right bread. So we've decided that there was only 2, potentially 3 decent Cybermen stories after that.
As I said, it wasn't that much of a disagreement.
It isn't that I think that Rise of the Cyberman is necessarily a great episode. I think it has trouble. It struggles with the cheese in places.
Yeah.
But it benefits greatly from the alternative Earth, because just what we were talking about, here is a way in which the show concocts a scenario in which it can afford to show the Cybermen being powerful.
Yeah.
Which is so often the problem.
Yes.
But with New Who bringing them back, especially if they were determined to make a splash for them, and it's the horror aspect of it is strongest in this story than any other New Who managed, apart from the very end. Because to show people being sheep-walked by brain control into factories where it shows the buzzsaws slicing open heads to extract brains and put them into cyber suits, and or where the guy has to play into jungle at Mighty Jungle, the lion stalks tonight because he's converting all these homeless people, and they scream a bit when the blades go in. It's got some horrific stuff in there. Also, hello, Mum. Oh no, you're now a Cyberman.
Yeah,
that is scary. So actually, one thing I read the other day about that story, the bit where they deactivate the Cyberman and its emotions come back, and it's a woman who's going to get married, and that's pretty horrific. The original script called that was going to be an 11-year-old boy who's going to be asking for his mum, but I think we were right to change that, because that would have been so disturbing. That could have got it cancelled. That would have been like, wow.
Zacko wanted to up it one more. I think it worked better in the Age of Steel as Cyberman actually won. Sure, agreed. Let's have the Doctor have to flee a dimension for once.
Yeah. That would
wouldn't
really
wouldn't that have set up the menace for the end of season? They're coming.
That would have been brilliant. That would have been actually. I tip my hat to him. That would have been much better.
So the panel is in full agreement with you, Zacko. That
that would have been
always take it that extra level. At the same time, keep something in reserve. But this seems to be the only time the show felt free to push the envelope as much as it did. And the Cybermen other times were just reduced to cameos, or in the case of Closing Time, used for a light comedy episode.
Yeah.
I blew them up with love.
It's just a disgrace.
Oh yeah, don't blow them up with love.
James Corden of all, one of the most
and then after that, and just getting tossed off as someone to blow up for information, and Good Man Goes to War. Then we get to Age of Steel, where Neil Gaiman just fell right on his face.
Yeah, big time.
Which shows you that actually getting to grips with Cybermen is not easy.
No,
not really.
But it definitely didn't help when the writer's hands were tied, which I don't know if Gaiman's were. I just think he took it the wrong direction.
I think
the slow-mo Superman Cyberman stuff was just so ridiculous it was never seen of again.
I think
because again, if Cybermen really could move as quickly as that, it's an I win button.
Yeah, it is exactly.
Well, you see, that story I think ties into what I was saying earlier, that when you bring an old monster back, you have to look, what is it that makes this monster special? And as I said, with the Cybermen, it should always be body horror and the idea of technology turning in. Whereas Neil Gaiman, I don't think looked at that. I think he had a very shallow thing of, I'm going to make them scary, by making them unbelievably badass, by giving them super speed, by having it they can overcome any weakness, by having it their heads can spin round. And as you say, John, that ends up making them look less scary because they're still going to have to lose. So you're going to think, okay, well, if you guys lose with all these I win buttons, you must be the
even though
biggest
even if
useless
your hand will wander off on its own and your head will spin around 180 degrees, you could move faster than I could see, you still lose.
I know
Yeah.
what idiot you must be if you lose on that. I mean,
I
Jesus.
mean, you are bad. You are really bad.
Oh, hang on. The Cybermen lost because the little guy who was the Emperor of the Universe had an I win button. There you go. There's no dramatic tension in the damn thing, is there?
None
Well, that's
whatsoever.
another thing. Yeah, that's like Russell T and his Deus Ex Machinas. It's like you're going to have to overpower the good guy to an insane degree with something like that in order to defeat this. You know, so as you say, it just becomes a pissing contest between godlike, protagonists and antagonists with no tension. No one has to think of anything.
And it's only a couple of weeks since we talked in depth about World Method Time and the Doctor Falls.
Yeah.
And we're over 2 hours.
Yes, indeed we are.
So I think we need something to wrap this live stream up with.
Yeah, indeed.
So let's exercise the grey matter, gentlemen.
Here we go.
We've shown a lot of love for the Cybermen. We've also shown how difficult it is to do the Cybermen well. And we've pointed out that the show itself has failed to make most of them more times than not.
Yep.
So what do we think would make a good Cyberman story? It's tricky if you've got ideas already not to give away your best shot, but
it is difficult, isn't it?
But it's assuming that we've got something. I mean, what would we want to see? What kind of story would we want to see the Cyberman in that we haven't seen? What are they missing from?
Well, I think, and I don't know how popular this idea would be, but maybe if we sort of get back to doing those one episode a season Doctor Light episodes where perhaps we see like a prequel backstory type thing to Mondas and how the people actually went from being regular humans and then together come in to convert to Cybermen, maybe that would be interesting.
That would.
We see from their perspective.
Yeah, because it give you a good back. Yeah, I like that. I actually like that idea.
That could make a good Doctor Who miniseries.
It would, wouldn't it? I think it would.
Mondas.
Yeah,
how the horror started,
Even better. What a great title. Yeah, because we need to get back to that sort of the body horror type sort of thing. And I think it would be fascinating to see how they got to how they had to work towards the fact that that was the only solution to their problem. That would be very interesting. Yeah, I like that. I like that Golden Age Geek. You better trademark that just in case. Because somebody might hear that. Oh, that's a good idea. Fortunately, yeah, okay. Chris Chibnall can't copy that. He's not doing it anymore. But no, I like that. I really like that idea. I could do with that.
Mondas, the origin tale. So that's a good one. Who's got another one?
Well, like I was saying earlier, I would quite like to see a Cyberman story that kind of uses them in different ways. I mean, you can obviously still do some what are like an antagonist, but like try and think of like don't just make them Daleks who want to conquer the entire universe. Like say maybe do one where as I said, like you see how they're maybe able to integrate, like how their technology is actually like maybe they're able to slowly take over somewhere by offering like technology to this species who are dying of a plague, saying we can help you with these partial conversions, and they're accepted that way, and say maybe there's an alliance between them and that species who maybe offer them like a couple of people to convert to keep their numbers up. And
how about this? How about a popular cult that spreads across the planets of a future star empire? Perhaps it could be represented by a bright flag with lots of primary colours on it. And this cult could be all about the cult of cyber ascension. And that they seek willing converts to join the ascended masters, and then it turns out to be Cybermen.
Oh, that sounds very familiar.
And then it's all these people thinking it was all peace and light, but they were just manipulating them to get hold of their brains all along.
Oh, that would be horrifying. I like the sound of that.
That's a good hook for a story, isn't it?
Oh, I like that one for Sadako there.
How people could be fooled into with their best hopes and wishes into undoing themselves and bringing about the doom of their own civilization at the same time.
I also think quite an interesting idea could be one where you have a race nearing extinction, and the Cybermen are trying to convert the last of them. Like, and there's maybe some that just want to die, but others that are actually okay with it.
Yeah,
And the
they're
Cybermen,
offering a dying race a mercy mission. The Doctor finds out, and then it's an ethics dilemma.
yeah, and also
Hmm.
that the Cybermen think they're the good guys because they're going to be preserving. Like, if they don't do it, the history of this planet, say its technology is like on the level of Earth right now, you know, like, so they're not a spacefaring race, they've not met up with others, so if they die.
Hang on. How about this? They belong to us. We do not forget.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Right.
the point. I think this race won't be exactly. That's what I was going to say. This race won't be forgotten if the Cybermen are able to add them to their collective. Or alternatively, you could do one where maybe there's been like a giant space war that's wiped out most life in the galaxy, but the Cybermen are visiting these planets and converting the bodies, and they view that as a good way. I mean, it's not quite like Death in Heaven. It's like they're taking, like, they're not killing people; they're just taking bodies from a war and learning about, you know, like this species that way. But like they're still desecrating the corpses, and there's, like, you know, still survivors that want to stop them. I mean, there's lots of things you could do with the Cybermen.
I'd like the show to establish a sort of future setting, like 5000 AD or something. Like they've done before. With
Yeah.
Professor Marius and Chain Iron were from that time period. Just establish a future setting and have a few stories set in this setting, and establish there's a civilization with multiple planets, and establish what some of those planets are.
Yeah.
Then invade them with Cybermen,
Yeah, why not?
so that we care. And also that it's so big that it can't be solved in one story, and that there's an ongoing cyber war that the Doctor has to engage in multiple times
Personally,
before it goes away. Give them something of significance and depth, and establish them as a threat that isn't being brushed off.
I agree, but I actually think that kind of story would work better with the Daleks, just because the Daleks are kind of the conquerors, whereas the Cybermen, who are just trying to survive, I think, like, I'm not sure I want to see them necessarily just be locked in an intergalactic war. Like, I think the Daleks are more interesting in that scenario because they can do all kinds of horrific things in the war. Like, you know, they can round people up into concentration camps, experiment on them, whereas the Cybermen in an intergalactic war, again, it's like they just convert you and they're just kind of straightforward.
The Daleks just go straight out for war crimes, don't they? It's just,
Yeah, no filter.
so
No filter.
You can at least say they're not dull.
No, that's what I mean. Like,
to commit all of them.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what I like that idea, but I would do it with Daleks. With the Cybermen,
Yeah.
as I said, I think maybe more low key kind of stories where they're perhaps a bit more manipulative.
Something where there is an established time setting where the Doctor has to interfere multiple times because of the threat and power of the Cybermen. I would like there to be a consistency, like a nexus of time where it really matters to oppose them. To really give it some stakes,
Oh, I agree.
But also, I think that we should see other aspects of the cyber race. We really should, and we should see a Cyberman vision of peace to be put against the kind of anarchic, chaotic kind of freedom that humans think of as as freedom, free will. To put that against more of a sort of very much more of a controlled society approach to life, but the Cybermen could make the argument that it's better that their way is better for the species as a whole, sort of something like that. Just give them something that means that you can't immediately dismiss them as monsters. You have to see them as a bit more than that. You see them as people who chose a different life.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what
interesting.
That's actually what I intended to do because my alternate sequel series. I'm actually in the middle of doing a Cyberman one now, and that's the angle I want to come at it from, where you see the Cybermen in the far future, and as I said, they're not necessarily a complete force for evil. Like, they'll still be antagonists, but they're not. It's not like, it isn't like, say, the Daleks, where like everyone's united against them. Because I think the Cybermen have got potential to be more than that. I mean, I still prefer the Daleks; they're still the best villains.
Sadako says, "I'm not mean to rubbish the idea, but it might be worth bearing in mind the Cybermen don't think of themselves as the good guys any more than bad guys. We understand logic, not morality. Yes, but
Good point.
logic has its own morality.
Yeah, like they think that what they're doing
Because
is
if you deduce that something is logically better for society as a whole, if you do it when you don't do it, there is an implicit morality in the logical choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. There's an idea as well that, like, the Cybermen, whilst they may be logical, they might not think of, say, kindness. They do think that what they're doing is for the good of the species, or else they wouldn't do it. So, you know, I mean, if they were complete logic, they would think, you know, okay, that's logically we should just let ourselves die because we're never going to conquer the universe. But they think we have to, you know, go on because that's what's best our race. So I think that element to the Cybermen can be maybe used to make them more than just monsters.
Sadako also says that's a nice idea, a contrast with the Doctor as he believes in peace, but he'd have to argue that anarchy and capacity for war is an important freedom. Chaos, really.
Yeah.
I think he'd have to argue that without chaos there is no growth.
Yeah.
Which is
Be
a
interesting.
very sticky wicket to try and balance on, Mr. Doctor. You know, but nevertheless, you know, it needs emotion to oppose the Cybermen, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As you are them.
Mm.
And perhaps that's their biggest victory of all.
Absolutely.
You know, and how easily we could become robotic in our lives.
Yes, very easily.
How often do we settle for each day the same as the last?
True.
How strongly would we really fight against conversion if the Cybermen came for us? Cold thoughts for a cold night. But that's the essence of monsters like the Cybermen. They test your virtue. They test how much you value being human. They test if you're really prepared to put it on the line and risk it, or if you're prepared to buckle under, cooperate in order to survive.
Indeed.
I think we're done, gentlemen. We've given the Cybermen lots and lots of love tonight.
We certainly have. I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Any last comments from anyone?
Golden Age Kate, you got anything else final to say?
No.
Right, short, sweet.
Nice, short, sweet, powerful.
Yeah, I mean, you could have tried a Cyberman voice on it. Negative. Very sure.
No. That's me as far as the Cybermen are concerned.
There you go.
I'll pick up the Sugar Babe Cybermen again.
Just leave the Sugar Babe Cybermen alone.
Push their buttons.
Final thought, yeah. Sugar Babe Cybermen forever, everybody. Woohoo! Yes. Cyber Babes for the win! Yay! Oh, damn! I'm now thinking of Cyberwoman. Damn you, Chris Chibnall.
Oh God, I forgot about that. Fucking
no!
Cyber stilettos, no.
Cyber boobs. Oh my God!
No.
This guy's supposed to be a feminist, and he gave us big cyber tits. I mean, really? God.
Dear Lord.
Oh dear, she's moiling mum of that cider later. Eaten by a petrodactyl, I believe. There's a moral in there somewhere.
Somewhere along the line.
Someone ordered a pizza in the middle of their duel with the Cybermen, and then she managed to perform brain surgery and put her brain in a pizza girl's body while she was being attacked by a pterodactyl. Seriously, that was the plot to that episode.
Pretty much.
I forgot it. Oh,
yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we have
apart from that bad PTSD episode right at the end there, that's been a fantastic stream, everyone.
It has been awesome.
And, thank you again to Gobby.
No worries, my friend.
It really is the combat medic to beat them all.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I know that Sergeant Gobby's on the job, and watch out whoever he aims his bolter at.
Yes, because you.
So we are back next week.
Yes, we are.
Why we love Why we love Gallifrey and the Master.
Yes, that should be fun. And it will be, as always, at the same time, at the same place.
And I can also preview that the following week we will be doing our favourite Doctor Who cliffhangers.
Yes, this should be a challenge. But it will
So
be fun.
join us for both of those, and thank you everybody. It's been wonderful once again.
Yes, thank you, gentlemen. As always, it's been a fantastic stream, and I shall look forward to seeing you all next week. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye, everyone.